From To Keto LLC, it's Keto Woman Podcast with Daisy Brackenhall.
Hello, Keto lovelies. I'm Daisy Brackenhall, and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and have always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight, after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. Keto has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe even the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs to 20 grams or less per day. So things like leafy greens and above ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds and the incidental carbs you find in things like dairy. Moderate protein scaled to your lean body mass, and then fat to satiety. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalised keto. I'll be asking my guest each week what their keto looks like to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor, and most of my guests won't be either, so we can't give you medical advice. It's always best to work with your own doctor because they know you and your medical history, and so have access to the bigger picture. Thank you, Sherilyn Clay, for supporting me in this podcast by making a pledge at my Patreon page. Do you want to hear your name here at the top of the show? Are you enjoying this podcast and would like to help me make more episodes? Then head to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman or hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It means a great deal to me, and you will get to headline the show just like Sherilyn did today. This week's extraordinary woman is Darla Hall. Darla is a CrossFit Level 1 trainer who has a love for people and helping them change their lives for the better. She is a Southerner to the core, born and raised in Alabama, and is married to her favourite human on the planet, Dan. They have 2 boys, Judah and Journey. Darla is a self-employed graphic designer, photographer, and all-round creative professional with a passion for health and fitness. She has recently been building her personal brand to reach out and inspire others to be healthier, to build healthier families, and break the perfect off of all of us. She has launched a line of gym athletic leisure wear, and all the pieces have empowering meanings behind the designs. She is also planning her first reset retreat, where she will spend 7 hours with a small group of women, teaching them how to go hard after their goals, eat healthier, and be stronger. Strong body, strong mind, strong spirit. Darla has been a ketogenic CrossFitter for over a year, and she loves how she feels being fat-fueled. As a CrossFit trainer, she loves helping her athletes push through their physical and mental barriers at the gym, and she believes that the things we accomplish in the gym translates into many other areas of our lives. You can find out more about Darla and all the great things she gets up to on her website, darlahall.com. I was very moved by Darla's story and impressed with her resilience and enthusiasm that she can now allow to rub off on all the people she trains, who I'm sure wax every bit as lyrical about her as she does for her coach. Welcome, Darla, to the Keto Woman Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So, tell us a bit about you.
All right. Well, my name is Darla Hall. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, so the deep south.
Yes, I can hear that. I love that southern accent, that southern twang. It's wonderful.
Yes, and I figured it would be very prominent next to your accent. So, but I am a graphic designer, creative professional, but also a CrossFit trainer here in Huntsville at Rocket City CrossFit. Also a mom of 2 boys, 11 and 13, and a wife to Daniel. And I currently am building my own brand based on just building up other women, strong body, mind, and spirit. also slowly launching a gym clothing line. So I have a lot of things on my plate, but I love it. It all just goes back to, loving and building up women. So that's my goal, I guess, or my purpose in life right now, especially. So that's me in a nutshell.
You are a busy woman by the sounds of it.
Yes, ma'am.
I hear a bit about CrossFit from some of the women in my Facebook group, and it sounds a bit daunting to me. But whenever anyone talks about it who goes, they just love it. Tell me a bit more about that and how you got into it in the first place, and why and how did you find it?
So, okay. I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go all the way back because it kind of, I feel like I should have been doing CrossFit for most of my life, but I did not find it until I was 31, which was just 4 or 5 years ago. So let's go all the way back because I feel like this is really the biggest part of my story and more of what I've overcome than anything else. And nutrition is part of that, but it goes way deeper than that. So, when I was 13, I was in a car accident with my mom. Somebody hit us head on. And I'm going to go ahead and interject this. Like lately, it's been kind of more raw because my son is 13. And so I can look at him right now and it becomes very, real about cause when you think about yourself as 13, you don't have memories really of like I can look at him now and be like, oh my gosh, I was his age when this happened.
Yeah, it really brings it home, doesn't it?
Yes. And especially to think about my mom and how, anyway, so there's a whole nother thing right now that I've been experiencing thinking about my story because I see him. But, anyway, so as a 13-year-old, I was very active. I was a cheerleader in gymnastics. So, as active as you could be to be a 13-year-old, I was that. So, I've always been strong and kind of more muscular. I feel like that's just in my DNA, and that's something else I see in my son too. Like he has my body build. So, anyway, so at 13, we were in this car accident and it, put me in a coma for about 9 days, but it broke everything. It broke my legs at the femurs, both of them, an arm, major head injuries, my jaw. I just messed up, a lot of things wrong. And honestly, that would have been it for me. If it wouldn't have been for, a first responder, a cop that he breathed for me until the helicopter got there. So, it was pretty bad. And of course, I don't remember any of this, my memory's spotty for back then, but especially like the car accident itself. I don't have any memory of all that. My mom though does. She had injuries that, she still deals with to this day, but she remembers all the things. And even over 20 years later, she could still get really emotional talking about it, and which I can only imagine as a mom thinking about, my baby. So that was the car accident. And let me just go ahead and preface, I'm an emotional person, and there's probably going to be tears several times throughout this interview. So just roll with it. It's okay. Everything's
That's
fine.
okay.
But,
we roll with anything here.
Yes. So, anyway, that whole process, I'm totally, my body healed from that. I came out of that, recouped, did everything that you have to do, to learn to walk again and all those kind of things. But what I didn't realize until probably even years later, but that it put this fear in me that I was fragile. So here I am, a 13-year-old. So we're getting ready to go into my high school years. And, remember I had said I was a cheerleader. So when you're a cheerleader, your next step is to go into junior varsity and varsity cheerleading. And that's where I was already learning in gymnastics, I was tumbling and backflips and all those kind of things. So now, I'm come out of this car accident, and even though I'm recovering, when I'm finally back to walking and, pretty much normal, I'm scared to even do a cartwheel or to get on my bicycle. Any of those kind of active things that I loved, now I was just afraid that I was going to break again. And I carried that for a long time. And I didn't even realize that was, I didn't know to pinpoint like, oh, that's where that's from. And then when you have parents who experience a trauma like that, like my mom's not going to push me to do things that I'm not comfortable because she's scared too. Like, let me tell you, she still like freaks out over seeing what I do in the gym now. And I'm 36. So, but so in that time, she wasn't going to push me to do something that I wasn't comfortable with. And when I talk about that, we're talking like I wanted to try out for the volleyball team because I'm a naturally competitive, like athletic person. I wanted to do those things, and I even tried out for the team. And I think I went to maybe one practice and saw like, all the running and shifting, all the things that you had to do. And I just froze. I was like, I can't do this. I was just scared to death that I was just going to break my legs again or something. And I let that keep me inactive for the longest time. So enter my husband. I met him. I was still in high school when I met him. And then, but he's 2 years younger than me. So when you're in high school and I'm like 17 and he's 15, we didn't start dating then. He was young enough that, I was kind of setting it up with my friend's younger sister and that kind of thing. So we were friends, but a couple of years later, we crossed paths again and we ended up dating. So there's a lot of details in there that's cute and all that. And he was pivotal in kind of digging me out of that hole that I feel like I was in. And I have to tell this story because it's just funny to me because I don't have any memory of it, but he tells it. And sometimes I do think this might be a little residual from the car accident. Sometimes I think that I have like little memory, issues that I'm like, I don't remember that at all. So I don't know if that's, from that head injury or if it's just literally, it was so traumatic for me that I pushed it out of my memory. But we were not married yet, but we were dating. And now, mind you, we got married pretty young. So he turned 19 right after our wedding. And then, so I'm 2 years older than him. But this was before we got married. So he's probably 17 and, 17, 19, whatever. And he's going to take me on this little hike. He used to go caving with his friends. And so he wanted to take me to this place that was pretty local to where he lives. And it was not a hard hike, he says, but I broke down on him like halfway to the cave or something, like crying. He said I was like heaving for air and just sat down. It was like, I can't do it. You just go on without me and I'll wait here. And he laughed because he's like, I can't believe. He was like, I didn't know what to do. And I literally, like, I've tried so hard to remember, but I cannot remember this story. But I can only imagine what he was thinking at the time. I mean, because, we might have been engaged. I don't know, but probably, serious relationship, like definitely thinking about our future anyway. And he's like, what have I got myself into? But I tell that story because it just kind of maybe paints a picture of how unfit I was, how unhealthy I was, like, because this was probably like a walk through the grass. Like, this was not even like a trail, like climbing up a mountain or anything. This was like basic activity, but things that I haven't done because I was so scared. We're talking about, I wasn't jogging. There was no kind of really activity at that time other than just, normal walking around. I mean, I just didn't sit around on the couch all day, but, I didn't really work out, which is crazy because I've always had a love for it. Like, I always wanted, from the very beginning, as long as I can remember, like, I wanted to help people, but I just didn't feel like I could ever find my way myself. And how can you, guide somebody down a trail that you can't find for yourself?
What jumps out to me actually is that, yeah, obviously you weren't having the level of activity that you were used to, but I don't know, something about the fact that you can't remember it, just comes together for me that yes, you were saying you weren't as physically active and as fit as you were. But also it's that mental side of it, isn't it? I mean, that to me, that sitting down, I can't do this, you know, sort of having something that I'm sure just freaked him out, seeing you like that, is also just the mental trauma coming up again, which to a certain extent might account for why you can't really remember it too much. And it's that it was not only this physical side, this mountain you had to climb, but it was the mental side at the same time, which just goes to show, I think, how important that is as well. It's not to be underestimated that you need to really properly process a trauma to be able to move forward.
Yes. Well, I think there's so much in your mind and thoughts, and which I've been studying so much about that lately, about mindsets, because, you know, it's kind of like where I'm at right now. Like I can be at goal or whatever, but if my mind hasn't changed, I can be just as unhealthy, just as unhappy. You know, I'm just wearing a smaller pant size or whatever, but you know, it's all in your head. But I mean, true. I mean, that could have been a lot of it because it was just a lot of breaking down. And I think I told him too, I was like, it could be like, I could have been afraid of snakes, of not being able to do it. I mean, there was a lot of things in in your mind that you can think, or what if I, injure myself again? There was so many things that could have went into play, but that was that little story. And it's funny to me. And I'm going to kind of tie it to this now because the things that I've done since I started CrossFit and met these group of friends that I have through that, it's that group of friends that I've done crazy things with, like ridiculous hiking expeditions under crazy loads. We did this one event where we hiked about 75 miles in 2.5 days under heavy packs, under heavy loads. So I know my pack started at about 50 pounds for that trip. And it was actually kind of an event where we hiked, but we also had like mental challenges and physical challenges that we did in the process. So the fact that I would even do that or be able to do that, I think back to that story that Daniel tells me because it's such I feel like it's even more than 180 story, like to look at what I can do now. Like I have to go back to that one spot and remember, like, that's where you came from, because it's really easy when I'm at this point in my life, when I'm working out all the time and I have different kinds of goals. I can get really caught up in not feeling like I'm doing enough based on my performance in the gym or how I eat, which is silly because I forget like how I used to not be able to do any of this stuff. And if I lose sight of that, then I get really caught up and stressed out about things that don't really matter. I didn't do as well as I wanted to on that workout, or I didn't eat perfectly keto today. That's going to throw over. I mean, things that ultimately I'm like, why am I getting stressed out over, not getting this score or not getting this many reps or, silly things. So I have to remember those times because I've come a long way, and it's really easy to forget when I get really caught up and overwhelmed in my moment right now. I have to remember to look back.
It's such a common mindset though, isn't it? It's such an easy trap to fall into and to listen to that inner critic that's nagging you about silly little details that are completely irrelevant when you can take a step back and look at that bigger picture.
So let's just kind of jump back to Daniel and that season. So that was right before we got married. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. We're married and he is still helping me, but it's still taking time to get me to where I'm wanting to like try to work out or something. I do remember him getting me on a bicycle for the first time and us riding around the neighborhood, things like that, which seems really small, but it was a big deal to me at the time because I just felt, there was just so many things, like we said, mentally, so many things that I was just having to try to overcome. But, we started having kids, and that happened pretty early. It wasn't by plan. We found out we were pregnant with Journey, right after our 1-year anniversary. And that was like a surprise. So we I kind of freaked out in the moment, but we're so happy now because, we're really young parents and, our kids it's super fun right now. So I'm definitely glad it happened that way. But, anyway, so what comes with you being inactive, and my eating habits were your basic standard American diet. I didn't eat like horrible, but, I grew up with a mom that was always on a diet, like most of us. She was always dieting. And so, the whole low fat, low calorie, like I kind of had that mindset. So I tried to do the best I could for the most part based on what I knew, based on what I was taught. And honestly, my first pregnancy, I ate perfect. I mean, I just had set my mind, and I had a friend at the time that was like, you should start coming to the gym with me. And so I started doing a little bit of activity. So, and I had started yoga. I loved yoga classes pre-pregnancy. So that was kind of how I eased in. It was like gentle activity. And then I was really flexible and really strong. So I really loved, the harder yoga classes, and that kind of eased me in. So I started doing some other classes because I just love being around people anyway. I love that whole group setting. So, I just kind of started dabbling in other group classes. And then as I got bigger in my pregnancy, I kind of moved over to the water aerobics with the little old ladies and stuff like that. But I really tried to focus on, honestly, I ate very clean and didn't really realize what I was doing, but I ate very clean through that whole pregnancy. I don't know that I had sugar or caffeine. I just read a lot of things about how to have the best pregnancy, and my body was very strong from doing yoga for almost, 6 months prior to being pregnant. I did not feel really pregnant until the very end of the pregnancy. I felt amazing. And it turns out that I must have kind of been losing weight while I was pregnant and not realizing it. I was eating well, but, cause I had gained 34 pounds with that pregnancy, but 10 days after I had him, I was down like 48 pounds. It was kind of freaky in a way, like that happened so quickly. But, I think that also played into, I had to have my gallbladder removed like at 6 weeks later. So I had some complications, which that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so that kind of started my activity back in, like when I was pregnant. And so once I had him, I just kind of eased back into, yoga and stuff like that. This was a very slow process. I can't even tell you guys, I was probably like 22 at this point. So we're still like trucking along really slow as far as the activity and stuff. And I'm going to kind of speed through this part and not to downplay it, but just because I guess for time, this is a whole nother story. But, in between my two boys, we actually found out we were pregnant with a second boy. That would have been my second boy. So Judah was actually my third, that we did not realize. I was on a progesterone only pill at the time when I was breastfeeding Journey. And we found out about in like October, I believe, that we were pregnant and didn't know we were already like 3 months along. So in January, we went to find out the sex of the baby. So everything was fine. And then in January, the baby had stopped growing. So, anyway, we had to actually deliver, our second son at 5 months. So I didn't even tell you that, as part of my story, but that's just kind of part of like the breaking down of, our bodies and how you even have to work past more stuff, because after that pregnancy, when we did get pregnant with Judah, and I was kind of pregnant at the same time for these 3 years, which is interesting. So when I did get pregnant with Judah, I really felt, I wasn't as strong in my body. Like I felt like my body was way more broken down, having 3 pregnancies in a row like that, and another, mental things that you go through trying to figure out, did I do something that, caused me to lose, this other baby? So anyway, so once we had Judah, here I am now, I'm feeling like my body is probably at its weakest. Even though, totally happy, and I have an amazing husband. I can't even talk about him too much because I'll get like really teary, but he is everything. Super supportive through every season. My biggest fan. And I think that he saw where I sit now. I think he saw that from the beginning. So, he's always known that I was stronger than I thought I was. And so anyway, after we got through that season, I met some friends who were runners, and they wanted to sign up for some races and stuff like that. And I was apprehensive to say the least, because I literally could not run for 30 seconds. But I was like, let's do this. Like, there were girls that looked like me. There were girls that were smaller than me. There were girls that were bigger than me, and everybody was doing it. So they were like, come on, let's just do a couch to 5K. Let's make a goal and, and do it. So that's what I did. I started one of those little podcasts, couch to 5K, and put it in my ears and just ran in my neighborhood. That's, and because the gym had kind of gotten a little farther away since I had kids, my schedule was, just like with every woman's season, like you have times where it fits and times where it doesn't seem to fit. And so at the time I had young kids. And so I was trying to figure out, how I could fit activity in. So I started running and I got pretty good at it. Amazingly, I did the couch to 5K and got to where I could actually jog, a 5K without having to walk. Now I wasn't like sprinting or anything, but I could do it. And that really started, encouraging me like, oh my gosh, my legs work. Like, they're not going to just break down if I run on them. And I was pretty heavy at the time. I was probably about 200 pounds at the time. And I lost a little bit of weight when I started that activity, maybe 10 pounds at the most. But remember, I told you I was pretty athletic and always been pretty muscular. I think my body literally just like adjusted to the activity and was super happy there, because the more I ran, the more I liked it. And I got to where I was running, 4 miles, probably 4 times a week, and then a longer run occasionally on the weekends. And then I did a half marathon. That was just kind of a bucket list thing. I didn't love running so much that I want to do them all the time. But, it felt like a big deal. So I signed up for that and I did it. Like, I did the one in Nashville, which was actually pretty hard. It was kind of hilly, but I did it. And as soon as I did that, I was like, okay, like things were slowly starting to break down. Mentally, I was like, okay, like I can do more than I think that I can. So that was probably at about age 27 or so, 27 or 8. After that, I was like, I don't think I like running. And so I kind of dwindled down. I ran a little bit, but for the most part, I stopped doing that. I guess I was bored with it. I don't know. I hate running, honestly. Like I only run when I have to now. I try to ease it in when I can, but, like doing something by myself like that is just not me. Like, I said earlier, I'm a people person, and I do like to get out and just put a podcast in my ears and, jog or whatever for every now and then. But for the most part, like I love being with people.
That's what I was going to say to you, actually. I could sense as you were saying that, that's why running wasn't a good fit for you, because you're a more of a group sport girl.
Yes,
a lot of people do enjoy running from that point of view. They like it because it's just them out on their own, working through some thoughts, maybe relieving some stress, listening to podcasts, listening to music. And that's why a lot of people like it. But I can see how it just wasn't really a good fit for you. It was a good thing to get you back active again and get you just another step along that journey of chipping away of some of the mental blocks you had. But I can see how it was never going to last for you.
And I think too, making that goal, like I said, having that 5K, like, okay, here's something you can work for. We have a goal that we have to meet. And honestly, when I think about it now and the way I work out now, like everything is kind of goal related. And I guess that's the kind of things that push me, which can be good and bad sometimes, because having my competitive nature, sometimes it can be my downfall to push so hard and always feel like you fall short, because my expectations are always crazy high for myself. So anyway, after the running, I kind of let that go. And, I had kids, and at the time they were school age. So I wasn't necessarily back in the gym, but I started to do a lot of stuff at home, like DVD stuff. I started having a desire to want to do more. I had several yoga DVDs that I liked, and Insanity and P90X, all that kind of stuff that people have heard of that I did here and there. And, I felt like I changed a little bit, but I still just couldn't get all the pieces right. I felt like I could get better I could do that workout better this time. I've been doing this for a month now, and I can tell that I'm getting better, but I couldn't get the fat. I just couldn't get smaller. I couldn't lose the weight. I felt like everything I did, it felt backwards, Of course, like everything that I know now, I wish I would have known then, but it just wasn't time yet, I guess. But
exactly. That's always the way.
Yes. I struggled through that season of trying to figure out all the pieces. Like, do I need to eat more calories? Do I need to? And so I played with that a lot, but I still could not really get under 190 pounds. I was still a heavy girl. I knew I was strong. I knew I was muscular. And, but everybody says, I just have big bones. I'm just muscular. That's why I'm heavy. But I actually am. But in the time, when you're telling yourself that, you're like, I'm just saying this to make myself feel better. But, but at the time I didn't know really how strong, I was, like the capabilities of my body and what my body composition actually was. But, I met these people I was doing some work for, and they were like, hey, have you ever heard of CrossFit? And, I was like, I think I've heard of it. I think I've seen it on, on something, videos or whatever. I was like, but I don't know. I kind of checked it out a little bit. It seemed kind of expensive, especially, for a family on a budget with young kids. And so I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I just don't know. I was like, I just don't know. When they were like, what if we, we'll pay for this fundamentals class just for you to check it out because we think that you'll love it. And I was like, okay. So I did our fundamentals class at Rocket City CrossFit. And for anybody that don't know, the fundamentals class just takes you through all the basic movements of CrossFit, like the air squat, the press movements, deadlift, and talks about what CrossFit is, talks a little bit about nutrition. It's just like an overview of CrossFit as a whole. It was like 6 classes, I believe, over the course of a month, 6 to 9 classes, something like that. And as soon as I walked in there and got through that first class, I knew that, that I was a lot weaker than I thought I was as far as like small movements, like the push up and the squat. Like I thought I had a good handle on some things, and I was like, nope, can't do that. Even hanging on the rig, like trying to hold my own body weight, just hanging from the pull-up bar. I mean, little things. And you're like, whew, I've got a long way to go. But still, I got in there and I knew like, this is it. This is what my body was made for. And not just that, but I wish I would have been doing this since I was a teenager. It's just, it just felt like home. And as by the time I finished fundamentals, I also knew that this is what I want to learn. This is what I need to be teaching. This is going to be the vehicle to help people. And I was hooked. And so I jumped in like with everything I had. I signed up. I started going as consistently as possible, which for me at the time was, about 3 classes a week, and then quickly moved to 4 classes, started seeing changes so fast as far as in my performance, my engine, my cardio, whatever. Sorry, I use engine. And some people were like, what is that? My metabolic conditioning, that kind of thing. So about a year in, my coach was like, hey, you're doing awesome. Your movements are great, but I think it's time to really nail down nutrition. He was like, I think this is going to be exactly what you need to take you to the next level. We've got to, shed this fat. And this is how we're going to do it. So I had tried paleo, because once you join CrossFit, like in CrossFit land, you're either doing some version of like paleo or, counting macros, kind of like the zone diet. So I had played around with paleo and liked it and lost a few pounds, but I didn't really stay consistent enough, I don't think, to really, say that it didn't work. I mean, it wasn't anything like that. I just needed somebody to tell me what to do and me just do it. Like I do the best. Like I don't like to say perfectionist. I like to say, I like to do things in excellence. And the bad part of that is it can turn into perfectionism, which can really hurt you. But what that means for me is if you tell me something and give me a checklist that like, hey, if you do all these things, then this will happen. And like, I love being able to like check all the boxes. And that's what he did for me. He was like, if you will do this, he was like, you don't have to be this strict forever, but if you'll do this, I promise you it will work. And so we actually did macros at that point. So kind of like a zone diet. So like a 30% fat, 30% protein, 40% carbs. And it was like clean carbs. So I didn't have any kind of bread or anything. I mean, the only grain I had or whatever was oats. Everything else, it was very clean. So, all great foods and all that kind of stuff. But it did exactly what he said it did. Like I started in October. Yes. And I did this over the holiday season. So I'm going to go ahead and say that it is possible. Like October, I kind of spent that month getting used to measuring things and count, like, cause I'd never really like used a digital scale and measured my food and all that. So that part stressed me out quite a bit. But, by the time I got to November, like I was locked in. And so I did this through November, December, like through the holiday season. I set my mind and, I just took dishes to my holiday gatherings that I could, share and eat so that I wouldn't blow it. I just kept telling myself, this is one set of holidays that it's worth it.
It's interesting, actually, that funnily enough, one of those, funny coincidences, but yes. I was watching a live that a friend of mine, Kim Howerton, was doing with Nisha Berry, and they were talking about the exact same thing. It was, should I wait till New Year's Day to start my diet, or
yes. And I hate that.
Exactly. And that's exactly basically what they were saying. And Kim made the very good point, and you just highlighted that it's actually a big chunk of time. I mean, Kim was saying, she said, I think her phrase was something like, as soon as we get a waft of pumpkin spice, that's when the holidays begin. And
yes.
That's basically, a quarter of the year. And that's a long time to just throw everything out of the window and say, oh, well, I'm just going to binge until New Year's.
It's crazy. It's
and actually,
crazy.
So she was saying that it's actually the perfect opportunity when you've got all these challenges in front of you, like these different festive occasions where, food is a real center of it. It's a really good opportunity to tackle those challenges head on. Mm-hmm. And exactly as you just said, that was one of the tips and tricks that she mentioned is, taking your own food with you and really, really getting to grips with it. I think sometimes starting something at the most difficult time is a great time, because once you've got through that, well, everything else is a breeze. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's something too that anybody can take with them into this holiday season is you can prepare food that tastes amazing that's not going to like destroy everything that you've worked hard for. It's not hard to do that. You just had to put a little extra work into it. So that's just what I did. And the thing about it is you go and your family and your friends, they see the difference. I mean, like it was not hard. I expected to catch more flack than I did at the time because, you're not eating all these things or whatever. But when you look totally different, people like notice. So that's what happened. Cause by the time I got through January, I had lost about 40 pounds. So I had lost about 10 pounds a month and it was awesome. I remember this is another little funny story because remember I told you I always felt like I was well muscled and all that kind of stuff. My mom, like anytime I told somebody like what I weighed, they didn't believe me. They were like, what? I can't believe you weigh that much. And, I'm like, what do you do with that? I don't even know what to do with that kind of comment. But my mom used to think that, I weighed about 160 or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would be so hot if I weighed 160, which is hilarious because that's about where I spend my time right now. I usually earn about 160 and very fit and I'm super happy at 160. But at the time, I guess people thought I looked that I weighed that, but I totally weighed more like 200 pounds. But it just shows you that you can't judge like somebody's body composition by the way they look by any means. Because some people would think that 160 is heavy and, whatever. Whatever you think, I'm strong. So I was like, I'm super happy about being able to, squat almost 300 pounds and be 160, whatever.
Exactly. I can lift you up.
Yes. I was like, I can pick you up. I don't care. So once I got to I'm going to call that goal, because that was really goal. Like, me and my coach think that I could be 150, but I don't know. We don't really know that. And I don't know that I want to work to get to that point, because I'm super happy where I am right now. But once we got to that point, I stayed eating, healthy and everything. But he approached me that year and he was like, hey, have you ever heard of keto? And I was like, I think I've heard a little bit about it, but I hadn't really, and he had been doing it for a while already. And at this time, I wasn't a trainer yet. I knew I wanted to be, and I was working towards that. So I was already kind of volunteering and helping and stuff. But I got my L1 to be a CrossFit trainer in August of that year. But I was already kind of playing with the nutrition stuff. He had approached me and he was like, let's look into this. He was like, I think that this could really take your performance to the next level. He was like, now you'll die first. He was like, in the gym, it's going to be a transition period. He was like, but I think ultimately it will be really good for you. Because one thing I didn't talk about when I was doing Zone, it worked and everything was awesome, but I was hungry all the time. Like, I kept food literally like in my purse and my gym bag. Like, I had food on me at all times. Like, I was hungry all the time. So that was kind of, I would get hangry. Like, if I didn't have, my snack or whatever, I was like ravenous.
And you can see how that goes very wrong for people who aren't, obligers, upholder type personality like you are, who will stick to the plan. You can see how it's just going to go very wrong for someone who doesn't have that. Because, having to fight that hunger all the time, that's a real uphill struggle, isn't it?
Yes. And I don't like to be hungry. And honestly, like, if I'm zoomed in, I can stay focused. But just like everybody else, I have my moments. Like, if I'm at home and I don't have the right things, like, there's some things I can't bring in my house because in my moments of weakness, if they're there, like, I will eat them. I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. Like, I still have the struggles. Like, I still have moments when we eat out that, we have something healthy and I eat or whatever. And I still have that little like, ooh, let's go get some ice cream. Or, like, we all still have those things. So I definitely don't want to paint a picture that I don't have those things, but because I do. But, so when he approached me about keto, that was kind of where I was at. So at this point, I'm in the gym 5 days a week and I'm active on the weekends with my family, but for the most part in the gym 5 days a week. And so we're about to experience all the keto things and we're going to see it play out in the gym. So that's kind of part of my story that is a little different because I didn't really have weight to lose at this point. It was all performance based. So, and it was real. It got real so fast. We jumped in and he had me start with like a day fast on the first day. And then I went into like, we wanted to do as little carbs as possible. So, most days in the first month, especially, I was below 15, sometimes below 10. Cause we were trying to just get me to the point, like, get me into ketosis as fast as possible. And, we were just wanting to watch all the things. We had all the data. I did test my blood for about the first 6 months, not like, it wasn't necessarily every day, but we tried to keep a, somewhat track of it because we're numbers people. We love data. We love to keep up and just see what happens. So, and I'm not going to spend like a ton of time talking about all the details of the gym, but I will tell you this. I already had a lot of the sugar stuff out of me because I was already eating so clean. So I did not have any kind of keto flu, which was good. I felt like as far as that part of the transition, I didn't really have any kind of bad effects. But I will say this, I guess starting about the third day, I went into the gym and started to like warm up. And I was already like breathy, like, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be bad. And so it was just getting into my first week that I started feeling like the downhill, like all of a sudden snowball effect of, I'm going to die here. And, so honestly, the engine part, like the breathing part, got better faster, but the strength dipped, and it took me a while to build that back up. So my strength numbers went down, and that probably lasted at least a couple of months, actually, before I could work back up. When I talked to my coach, we kind of figure it took about 3 to 4 months to get to where my strength was where I started. And then we started climbing from there. So once I got really fat adapted, everything was just amazing. The gym stuff was still hard. And even to this day, it still takes me a little longer to get, where before I was really good at quick, fast workouts where you just go hard really fast. Where now, when I have to do those quick, fast workouts, I still feel like I struggle a little bit breathing, but I feel like it's more mental than anything. If I just push past that first part, then once I guess when my body actually starts burning the fat for energy, once I get past that little hard section, then I feel like I can go forever. So if it's a longer workout, I can pace and it's good. My muscle stamina, all that is so good. So I've really enjoyed that part of keto in the gym. I think there's a lot of people that get scared to try it because so many people say that it hurts, those HIIT workout kind of things. And I think that you just have to be brave enough to experiment and see what works for your body and just try it.
And what kept you going? I mean, I'm guessing here, but I'd be really interested to hear more. That it sounds to me like your coach prepared you for what was going to happen, and that I expect from the way you've been talking that you had a good deal of faith in your coach. But I imagine it was very unnerving and disheartening when you started to lose your strength and feel out of breath, and you must have I would have thought at times thought about giving it up and going back to where you were before when you felt stronger. What kept you going and made you want to push through those several months? We're not just talking about days or even a few weeks here. We're talking about quite a long period of time where I imagine a lot of people would have said, nah, I'm going to drop this and go back to where I was before. What kept you going?
I'm glad you said that because it did bring up, and I'll probably cry again because when I talk about my coach, he is, aside from my husband, played such a huge part in my transformation in general. So remember I talked about how much of a people person I am. When I stepped into this gym and started going to my class, my 9 a.m. class, he was the coach. And then I had this group of girls that, when you start going to class with people every day, you form relationships. You die together in the gym and, you're seeing the same people over and over. And it creates this community that I'm still like this today. There are days where I get up in the morning and I don't want to go to the gym. And I'm one of the coaches. But I mean, there's some days that I don't want to go and sweat and work so hard. But I go because I love those people. Because I want to spend part of my day with those people. And I know that if I'll just go, then eventually my body will get on board. If I just go and start working out, it'll eventually, we'll all be going together and it'll be awesome. But my coach from the very beginning and those women, because remember, I had all these mental challenges inside of me. And when you get in the gym and you are pushing yourselves to where you think that you can't go anymore. I remember so many times, and remember I told you I'm a crier. I'm super sensitive. And I've cried in that gym more than anybody needs to know. And that's just who I am. I cry when I'm happy or when I'm angry or when I'm sad. And I don't cry as much these days at the gym as when I used to, but there was some breaking down that happened mentally. There were several times that I would be doing wall balls or trying to do double unders or something, skills that I've learned over the process, over these 2 years or whatever, and just feel like I could not push any harder and just kind of break down. And then I stop. I have to literally stop myself and say, get up, keep going. You can cry, but you can't quit. So that became my mantra. And And my coach saw that early on, that fight in me, and he pushed me hard. And if somebody looked in on us, like, they might think that he was being mean to me sometimes, but he wasn't. Like, I think he just saw so much that I didn't even know was there. And so he pushed me, all through this process. So we're not just talking about keto stuff. This was a relationship that was forged over, 2 years of him watching me every day fight through, just hard. I was at the bottom of the scoreboard all the time. So in CrossFit, we have a whiteboard and everybody's scores go up. Like, I was at the bottom all the time. And, I would have never thought, like, now, like, I'm one of the top ones all the time. Like I have to remind my athletes that didn't know me before, like, guys, like, let me show you my pictures. Let me show you, like, I was at the bottom all the time, always at the bottom. And you see me, what I am now, and you see how hard I work now, but, like, I didn't start here. Like, I couldn't do pull-ups. I couldn't do double unders. I couldn't hang from the rig and lift my knees up. Like, there was so much I could not do. And they see what I can do now. And I don't ever, like I said before, I don't ever want to forget, like, where I came from. So all those things built me up to this point. So yes, I trust my coach and I would do whatever he said. And he told me, like, it was going to be hard. And he just reminded me that this was about the long game. This was not about something that's going to happen fast. This was about, we're changing my whole metabolic system here. This is going to take a process. It's going to be time, but ultimately he thought that it would be the best for me. So that's all I needed. And I just locked in and just kept going the best I could. And I still do that today because I still have moments where, I'm trying to figure out, like, because now being keto over a year and a half, like, as an athlete, I'm trying to kind of play with my percentages and find my sweet spot. Because sometimes I feel like, as a woman, especially, I feel like I can't get as lean as some people do doing keto. And I'm like, well, am I doing something? Do I need to adjust something? And I almost want to, like, it just seems like it'd be easier just to go back to counting regular macros. It seems like it's not as hard. I'm like, stop that. It's like I want to go back and to something that I remember worked. And I'm like, that's so silly because I feel so good eating the way I do. And I'm getting caught up in small things that don't matter. Like, who cares if I'm, 2% body fat more than what I was, 6 months ago or whatever. Little things that just shouldn't matter. So yeah, but I love my coach. I love those women in the gym. I think that is the difference maker in any person's gym life or workout or whatever. You need people around you that will push you, that will support you, that will love you for who you are. Because I believe that there's true strength in vulnerability. And that's what happened to me in the gym. Like, I had no choice because I broke down all the time crying. Like, they saw me at the worst. They probably didn't know what in the world they'd gotten themselves into when I walked in that gym, but they saw me at my worst and loved me anyway. And I think that's why those relationships are so special. And I've done just some epic adventures and experiences with those women that they've changed my life. Like, it is so much fuller because of those women. And it's just amazing. Like, how I get teary all the time when I think about them. And, cause they're so special. I love them to death. So
it sounds like it. And, this is something that you've obviously gained a lot from other people. And, you're now at that point where you start paying it forward and you start being that person that these people have been to you. That must be very exciting.
Yes. I love, like, if I can share with anybody or help anybody along, that is the ultimate goal because, I don't think that it is beyond anybody's capabilities to be able to change, their health, their mindsets, their life, whether it be via CrossFit or not. Like, I think CrossFit's awesome for everyone, but you have to find your own thing. Like I have friends that, do all kinds of different, they get their fitness in one way or the other. And I think it's more about finding something that you love, that you'll stick with. Like you said, there's people that love to run and they could run all the time. And I don't know. I don't want to do that. I can do it occasionally to be stress-free, like I said, or if it's in a CrossFit workout and I have to do some sprints or whatever. But for the most part, I like being with a group of people. I do love being outdoors and hiking and going on trips like that are active, but are still, in nature and just peaceful. I think there's something for everybody. And maybe you're in a season where you're a mom and you feel like you don't have time to do anything. Like there's so many things at your fingertips with social media and, little things that you can do at home. Like it's not beyond anybody to do some kind of movement every day. And I think that's what's important. Like people get so caught up in their idea of the perfect body or the perfect workout or the perfect mom that they feel like if they can't measure up to this level, then they just won't do anything at all. And I think that we have to really get away from that because it hurts us as a whole. Like I had a conversation the other day with somebody about meal prep. And, some people, when they think about meal prep, they think about the people who cook and put all their meals in these little containers and put them all in their fridge. And that's not the only way. Like, that's not my personality. Like, I cook ahead and store things in bulk and stuff like that so I can pull from it. Like, putting things in the little containers like that, like, stresses me out. Like, that's not my style. But some people get an idea that that's what meal prep is. And if they can't do that, then they don't want to do anything at all. And so I think in whatever topic that we're talking about, if you have that mindset about everything, you'll never do anything. And I think that we really have to get away from that and encourage each other to do whatever you can in your season, in whatever season that you're in.
Exactly.
So.
And what's going to work for you, like you say, in your season, in your moment. It's not about, so if I want to get into exercise, I've got to go to, the gym at certain times, 3 times a week to be doing it right. Well, no, like you were saying, if you're a busy mum or whatever it is you're doing, you've got to find something that works for you, not mm-hmm. the other way around. And like you said, the same with meal prep. I'd be interested to know, you said you tweak your macros as you go along and you experiment and you play around with things, but what does your keto look like at the moment?
Okay, so lately I've actually been having a little more protein than what I have in the past. I got to the point where I was following your basic like 70% fat, 25% protein, 5% carbs, something like that. And not saying that wasn't working for me, but I felt like with my workout schedule and how much like strength training I was doing, I just felt like I needed to, I needed more protein. And honestly, over the summer, I had gotten so stressed out about all of it that I kind of had to, I had to take a step back because I was logging everything that I ate every day. I was in the gym, like pushing hard and trying to, do all the workouts 110%, and you're always like competing with yourself. So I literally felt like I was in just stress over my food, stress over my workouts, which is totally like the opposite of, if you're trying to do all the good by eating well and exercising, like you can't stress about it. And it felt like it was doing the total opposite. So I'd kind of taken a step back. I didn't come off keto, but I just stopped logging. I ate, the same foods and stuff, but I was like, I just had to walk away, and just stop. So anyway, lately I was listening to, I can't remember if it was Ketogenic Athlete or Keto Savage, but somebody had on, Angela Sharina, and she was, like a Russian coach girl. And she was talking about her keto and, she's in the gym a lot. And I think I think she does not necessarily like bodybuilding competitions, but kind of like, fitness model competitions kind of deal. And, she was talking about her higher protein, and she does it all with just real food. So she doesn't do any kind of bars or shakes or anything like that. It was like she does higher protein, but it's all real food. And anyway, as I listened to her, it was just intriguing me. And I was like, you know what? I said, like, I think I'm going to reach out to her and just ask her some questions. And so that's what I did. So we've kind of been talking back and forth. So lately I have been doing more of like 130 to 140 grams of protein. So that's going to put me more at about the 55 to 60% fat range. So my carbs are still pretty low, usually around 20 to 30 maybe for my carbs. But I'm trying to do all real foods. So no sweeteners, and I've cut out dairy. We've just been kind of doing this experiment to see what happens. So I felt really good doing this, and I feel like I feel leaner. So even in my arms and stuff. So we'll see. I'm going to do another body comp in a couple of weeks, but, just to give you a better picture, you asked what my keto day looks like. So I always have coffee in the morning. I don't really do bulletproof. I do some collagen in it. I was for a time putting heavy cream, but since like for the past month, I've been doing no dairy. I'll do like a little bit of coconut milk or coconut almond blend milk, something like that. But I do use collagen every day. It's just something, good for your joints and hair and nails, all that kind of stuff. So that is part of my, my daily regimen. Coffee is all I do before the gym. So then I work out, and then my lunch is usually, like eggs and bacon. Like I love breakfast food. I could eat it like
me too.
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So a lot of times my lunch will be like 3 eggs, some avocado, a few slices of bacon. If I did like burgers the night before, because a lot of times when I do burgers, I'll do like 2 pounds of meat so that we have plenty to eat and then plenty to put in the fridge. So if I've done that the night before, which I actually did a couple of nights ago, so I've had burger patties. So if I have that on hand, then I might do that for lunch with like some spinach, some avocado. I'm super simple in my food. Like I don't make a ton of recipes. Occasionally I'll make like some sausage balls, like keto sausage balls. Or I might make like some, flourless, like pumpkin muffins that the boys like, that are low carb keto. But for the most part, I'm very simple. I like to just keep it easy. Like if we do a taco night, I'll do taco meat over, spinach and avocado. I love avocado, obviously. I've said that like 3. But, eggs. I love eggs. I eat a lot of eggs. So I'm just super simple. I don't like to complicate things. If I try a recipe, most of the time it's going to be for some kind of party. If I need like a good party food. Yeah, that's what my day looks like. I try to do somewhat intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. So I try to have, all my eating done before 6 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock, just depending on, what my schedule is like. But I really try to not eat late just for all the circadian rhythm stuff. I've been researching a lot of that too. So that's always interesting to me. But that's what my day looks like for the most part.
Perfect. And where can people find you? It sounds like, people can find you locally, but online as well. Just tell us how people can get hold of you.
Yeah. Well, my website's darlahall.com, which also, my Instagram is Darla Hall at Darla Hall. So I'm sure you'll put this in the show notes, but if you go to my website, you can connect to me. I have a Facebook page as well. It's at Strong Darla. I would love to hear from anybody. If you need help figuring out, nutrition or whatever, I'm not a nutritionist, but I've learned a lot in my journey. So, there might just be some things that I could help you troubleshoot, but just with motivation and inspiration. Follow me. I try to be as authentic and real and just as open as I can, when I post on Instagram. And as far as my clothing line, everything that I've put out so far, which is not a whole lot, but my Strong shirts, and then my newest one is the design is Endurance Athlete. Every design has a meaning. And so if you look at my social media, you'll see all that, but nothing is what it seems. So Strong means so much more than what you would think that Strong means. And Endurance Athlete is so much more than what it seems. Like I actually have that tattoo on my back. It's Endurance Athlete in like a type font. And I got that after I did the half marathon, but it had nothing to do with that really. It was about not quitting. And at the time I was still heavy, but I knew that who I'm sitting here as today was in there, and I knew I was going to get there. And that was more about what that tattoo meant. And so now, like, that's my newest design for my shirts, and sports bras. I've got a couple of things. That's what that's about. And so every design that I put out is really just ties back to being able to uplift people where you're at, to be able to, grab a hold of everything that's inside of you and who you were created to be, because, there's nobody that can be you. Like, if you're trying to be somebody else, you're stripping the world of, the voice that you have and the people that need to hear your story. So that's what I really want to encourage just by my life. So I don't feel like I'm much of anybody. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm just a regular girl. But I just want to reach out to whoever will hear me, because I know there's people that need to know, like, don't quit. It doesn't matter how hard it is. Just keep pushing. Find people that are around you that love you and spend time with them. I mean, that's what enriches your life, is the people that's around you. And I think that, you can get so bogged down with life. Like, your first thing that you want to do sometimes is kind of isolate yourself. And, some people get mopey, but what you really need to do is be strong and be vulnerable. And it takes strength to do that, to open up to people and let them in. But that's how you can really grow. So, yeah, that's me.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that there's, a story behind everything that you do, and that you're willing to potentially lay yourself open, be vulnerable, to share that and help others. So, I'd love to round up the show today with a top tip from you to our listeners.
Yes. So my top tip would be to break the perfect off of yourself. So just like I referred to earlier, is this summer when I was getting so stressed about my eating not being perfect, or me not measuring up in the gym the way that I thought that I should. That's a mental thing, because it's silly that I could get upset at myself for going to the gym every day and not hitting some mark, whatever that was. Same thing with my food. I was eating healthy every day, but feeling stressed that I wasn't doing something, that this percentage was off, or, whatever. But that can go for anything in your life, like whatever goal that you may have, or like, you have to be able to have a little grace, like give yourself a little grace. Nobody grows through toxic stress. I think if anything else, that you have to take better care of yourself. You have to put yourself first sometimes. That's not meaning that you have to be selfish, but you have to care for yourself. Like, we're constantly pouring out. I mean, like I have kids, I have a husband, I have a job, I have, so many things. I have athletes that I want to pour good things out to them. But if I'm not keeping myself full, then I'm not going to have anything to pour. And so I think part of that is not feeling like I have to be perfect all the time, because nobody's perfect. I mean, and I don't want to paint that picture even on Instagram. I've had somebody tell me the other day, "Oh, your life looks so amazing." I'm like, what? I try to be as real as I can. Yes, I want to show you some pretty pictures because we've had some cool trips lately, but for the most part, I want you to see all the things, because we definitely do not have it all together. I wish you could see, I'm sitting at a desk and everything's a mess everywhere around me right now. But if you find the right angle, it can look pretty, but that's just not real life. We live here. So, but anyway, that's my tip, is to break perfect off of your life.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Daisy. Anytime. I love talking to you too.
To get the resources and links from the show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you want to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. If you fancy joining me on this exciting adventure and want to help me create new episodes, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/KetoWoman, or simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman podcast website. It's thanks to the two keto dudes that I'm hosting this podcast. So please consider heading to their Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com and help them bring you more podcasts like this one. Please help other people hear about and find this podcast by reviewing the show on iTunes and Facebook. Every star and review really does help. It doesn't go unnoticed by me, the people who regularly like, share and comment on my posts. Your support means the world to me. Thank you.
This week's end quote is from Unknown, which irritates me no end because someone said it right, and I can't bear not to attribute quotes. If anyone knows who said it, please do let me know. It did feel very fitting this week, so here we are from Unknown. You need to ignore what everyone else is doing and achieving. Your life is about breaking your own limits and outgrowing yourself to live your best life. You are not in competition with anyone else. Plan to outdo your past, not other people. Bye-bye, Keto lovelies.